Star Trek Ascendancy, the Cardassian expansion. Let's see what the spoonheads are like. Hello and welcome to The Lucky Roll, an eclectic channel for eclectic games, and today we're going to be unboxing the expansion for Star Trek Ascendancy, the Cardassian Union. Yes, the old spoonheads themselves. Gale Force 9 recently gifted us with a copy of Star Trek Ascendancy for a review, and we've played it a few times with 3-player now, but I'm very curious to see how it fares out with 4-player. So I snuck out one of my favourite villains in the franchise, and there's quite a lot of them, I believe. There's the Ferengi, there's the Vulcans, there is the Borg, there is the Dominion. So if you want to kind of expand your game, you can go in multiple directions, but of course my favourite bad guys have always been the old Cardis. So especially as a big Chief O'Brien fan, I'm not fond of them like he is either. So again, basically it's an expansion for the core game, and you get a nice few little things in here. So it adds an extra hour because it tends to be an hour per playtime, and you get the command console, system disk, space lanes, fleet cards, fleet markers, plastic ships, control nodes, reference cards, exploration cards, 3 trade agreements, which of course are part and parcel of the game, 5 advancement cards, which would be the unique kind of advancement track for the Cardis, 19 resource nodes, so you get extra resource nodes because you obviously get a lot of extra planets, and 76 specific tokens. So with no further ado, let's open this box and see what we have inside. Now, one thing I want to mention before we open the box is it's nice to see Gul Dukat here. Of course, he is, I'd say, by far the most famous Cardassian of them all, and you can see here the Cardassian homeworld in the background. You have his right-hand man, which of course spoilers, but I suppose the show was over 20 years ago. It turned out to be kind of a revolutionary hero that died at the last second. So Dumar was his name, and an amazing journey for this actor, because he started off as his sidekick in one episode, and then just towards the latter part of the series turned into a huge character, because Gul Dukat, who would have been the hero, or not the hero, but the leader of the Cardassians, went off in a different direction and left his number one behind to pick up the pieces, as it were. And Dumar had turned into kind of a canar guzzling alcoholic whose conscience got to him in the end and tried to right all the wrongs of the Cardassian Empire. A really cool little story arc. This man, of course, is the leader of the Obsidian Order, which is interesting, because I would have thought the most famous Cardassian would have been Garak, which is played by Andrew Robinson. But this character happens to be either Garak's father or his protege, but he would have been one of the founders, or certainly one of the core members of the Obsidian Order, which gives a clue or a hint, I think, as to the type of advancement you can make in this game, that they've chosen to put this character here instead of Garak. So, opening the box for the very first time, we are greeted, of course, with the instructions. Now, the instructions are fairly simple. I mean, you're just really adding a new faction to it, so it gives you kind of a little bit of an idea of how it is to add the Cardassians to the game, what different types of cards, anything unique among them. So this is something you can kind of throw into the game straight away, and something I'm very much looking forward to, because we've played Star Trek Ascendancy 3 times now, and I've really enjoyed it. 3 times now with 3 different players, and I've really enjoyed it, and I want to get a few 4-player games going before we work on our review. So this, of course, is the Cardassian player board, and what I like about Star Trek Ascendancy is all these player boards are quite unique. They're very kind of reflective of their representative factions. So this, of course, is the Cardassian Empire, and you can see there's a nice Deep Space Nine shades of brown type of decor that the Cardis actually like, but all the usual modifiers here. Now, one interesting thing here, their unique rule is annexation. Take 1 culture each time you successfully invade a planet. So the Cardis, being the Imperial types they are, get culture for they don't make culture, they just take it. We have here the space lanes. We have 4s and 3s, and we have research tokens, culture tokens, and ascendancy tokens. So I think we have these tokens several times over. So you get a lot of extra little space lanes, of course, to account for the extra player. A few 2s here, some more production tokens, research, culture. And we have, again, more command tokens because you'll need them because you've got a new player. More warp tokens because you've got a new player. And we have some of the interesting planets here. So I'm just going to punch out some of the planets because they will be interesting to look at. We also have here the actual space station. So, of course, the Cardies get 3. We have 3 other planets here. Now, this is interesting. One is the... I'll talk about them when I see them, but I already recognize a few of them from the TV show, which is actually pretty cool, which again means that Gale Force 9 have done brilliant attention to detail and done their homework as usual when they come to any of the Star Trek shows. So we have Sigma Dratonus, which has, of course, culture research and production. You have Regulus 5, which is interesting because it has an open slot and a research. You have Bajor, which, of course, is... where Deep Space Nine is set. Deep Space Nine was in orbit of Bajor, but a wormhole opened quite close to it, so it went from Bajor to the wormhole. A great, fantastic TV series. Of all the Star Treks, I think Star Trek Deep Space Nine is the best, is the one that lasts the long, and I'm not saying that because there's a great Irishman in it as well. You have, of course, culture production and an open one for resource. So it's quite a good planet to take over. And especially if you're a Cardi, you're probably just for lore sake, you're going to make a beeline for that. You have the Briar Patch, which is a very interesting phenomenon because there was parts where I think the Maquis had fought with the Cardassians in the Star Trek TV series. There was a kind of a very clumsy border change between the Cardassian Empire and the Federation, and some Federation colonies found themselves within Cardassian territory, and the Cardassians, not being the nicest people in the world, tried to bully them out a little bit. So these Federation colonies were now independent, formed a resistance group called the Maquis, and they used to constantly hide in the Briar Patch to go out and strike them. The same thing here with the Badlands was another part of the areas that the Maquis would come out and strike the Cardassians from. So it's really cool to see that these 2 tokens are here. You have, of course, Cardassia Prime, which is, of course, like any starting planet, has culture research and production. You have Cordian 3, which is not a planet I know, but has research and production. You have Magna Roma, 2 production, and you have Curl, which has the game-winning culture. So this is definitely an interesting one to fight over. And you have the Goralis, which is an interesting kind of planet, a Hazard 5, but has 2 research and a production. So some nice, tempting little planets here to kind of chase up after. We have here the actual tokens for the Cardassians. So again, I always thought the ships were kind of cool, very kind of fish-shaped type of things. But we have here the small little ones in the kind of the ugly Cardassian tan. We have the larger ones here, of course, for the fleet. So they have a little bit more detail. Now, I've never felt the inclining to paint these, but I suppose you could put a little bit of a wash on them and they would pick it up quite nicely because it's the detail on these are quite nice. And we have here, of course, the actual research nodes, or command nodes, or control nodes, I should say, that allow you to dominate the planet. We also have here the actual production nodes. So you have research, production, and culture. So we've seen these in the main box. So I won't go through these, but you get another nice little extra pile of them here. We have 3 sets of cards. So we have the Cardassian advancement cards. We have the trade agreement cards, along with what I would say are some of the new exploration cards, and the Cardassian fleet cards. So let's have a look at the actual Cardassian fleet cards first. So we have, of course, the first fleet is a hunter-killer fleet. So in the first round of space battles, all this fleet's 2 hit scores automatically score a hit. So that's definitely encouraging the Cardi player to go out and look for trouble. And you have, of course, on the other side, a fleet of 9. You have the Overseer. So if this fleet occupies a Cardassian-controlled system during resource generation, double the production generated by that system. May not be used in orbit of Cardassia Prime. Now that is very interesting. And also thematic, because the poor old Bajorans were worked half to death by the Cardassians because they were trying to take the planet for all it was worth. So it makes sense, lore-wise, to have an Overseer which would double the production generated of the system. So if you had a system, of course, with 2 production, or even 2 production and a wild one, and you put an Overseer on it, that's nearly 6 production you're generating every turn, or 4 on a standard 2. So that is a very interesting little fleet to have, and of course it doubles up to the 9. And you have here the assault fleet, where this fleet may reroll hit rolls of 1-2 in planetary invasions, and of course the fleet on the other side with the 9. And you have, of course, the player guide, which goes through all the different players. We'll have a look here at the trade agreements and the exploration cards. So we have 3 of the trade agreement cards here, of course 1, 2 and 3, so there's nothing unique about this. And we have a lot of exploration cards here, so let's have a look at what we have. So we have the Cardassian confrontation, so it's a crisis. If you have a Cardassian rival, place a new Cardassian ship in this system. If not, place a new ship from the player to your right in this system. So it's nice that you can kind of include the Cardassian crisis cards in it. And it's not a good idea to stay too long on a Cardassian border without making your intentions known. So I think I remember the first episode, the tensions were not so nice. I think they had a war that Chief O'Brien was a veteran of and had kind of backed off. So the first time we see the Cardassians in the Next Generation, there was a cool kind of, coolly kind of not so nice, coolly not so nice kind of first contact, but kind of long overdue second contact. Again, I remember quite a good episode, and it's nice here because this fits into the theme of it as well, that you're meeting a lone ship and you're not happy talking to each other. You have the Federation confrontation. So you have, if you have a Federation ship, place a new Federation ship in this system. If not, place a new ship from player to your right in this system. So this is interesting. These are actually interesting now, because in the few games that we have played with the vanilla copy, it's been hard to, there was one card that kind of threw you into meeting another player, which was the Q card, and it was slightly to the disadvantage of us in that particular game because it allowed the other player to get his bases, everything to kind of turtle up and get his resource things going forward a little bit better. With this one, you're forcing ships into each other, and if you want to kind of get the fleet back, you have to kind of make the space lanes back to your own laneway. So these are actually excellent cards to see that they're shaking it up and forcing players in contact with each other in a way you don't like it. Again, here the same thing with the Romulan confrontation. So this is already worth the money I paid for it, because it's already a Kickstarter and getting faction players in touch with each other straight away. So it could be anything from terms of, say, trade agreements or even battling over a juicy system. So again, you have the Romulan one and the Klingon one. We have here the Cardassian Armistice Accords. So again, this is the first episode where we met the Cardassians, and they were interesting. Again, they weren't. It was coolly kind of. It was cool, not so friendly kind of negotiations. But newly drawn borders necessitated relocation of some existing populations and the establishment of a demilitarized zone. Yes, now I remember now, because the first time we meet the Cardassians, it was of course to deal with the Maquis and some of the revolting Federation colonies, and it was a job that Picard did not like, because, you know, he's turning on his own. You have here the Ferengi confrontation. So this is an interesting card. Of course, the Ferengi are another one of the factions that you can include in this game. So I don't have the Ferengi pack, but I have to say I'm now tempted to get it. But even if I put this card into it, if I didn't have a Ferengi player, it's fine. You just pick a player from your right and do so. So these are good crisis cards that they force kind of people in touch with each other. You have a neutron star event, which is you may brave a level 4 hazard, and if you do, at least one ship survives. You may put a research in 2 of your projects. So a good, nice little discovery card. You have the Cardassian delegation. Again, this is imagery taken from the first episode in the Next Generation with the Cardassians. So this is Gul Namek for his aggressive tactics in delicate negotiations. So if you're the Cardassians or hold a Cardassian trade agreement, all your trade agreements immediately generate resources, if not exhaust all your trade agreements. So that is an interesting little card, so it makes it worth your while to be at least some bit pally with the old cardies. You have a pre-warp level 0 civilization, and you have a warp capable level 3 civilization. So you have one that's easy for the cardies to take over and one that's not so easy for the cardies to take over. And we'll have a look here at the advancement cards for the cardies before we move on. So we have the starting advancement, which is the totalitarian regime. So Cardassians begin with an additional command for a starting total of 6 commands. So that's an interesting little thing, because again, it's an aggressive race, and being able to get out there and find planets and explore them would really help you. You have central command, so your system's hegemony resistance is increased by 1. Of course, it gives you a command token and a warp token. Your starbases now add 3 additional dice to hit. So a weaponized starbase. So this is definitely a nod to Deep Space Nine, because especially I think in the latter series, O'Brien had fixed up, and my God, Deep Space Nine had teeth. There was photon torpedoes and laser banks out the wazoo with it. You have the Obsidian Order again, which is on your turn you may exhaust this card to exhaust another player's espionage advancement. Your system's hegemony resistance is increased by 1. You have the military, which field retrofit protocols. You may commission fleets in any sector. Now that is interesting. You have the gravitic sensor net. Romulan cloaking technology's effects may not be used in systems you control or against ships therein. You have sensor ghosting and hollow projection. So during a space battle, exhaust this card to force a rival to re-roll hits they've scored this combat round. This may be used on a rival's turn. Now that is a very interesting card, because you can basically literally turn the tide of a battle with that. You have covert military bases. During your building phase, you may be able to up to 3 ships in an uncontrolled system. Again, that is another one. So the Cardassians are definitely a very forward, aggressive game starting race. You have the gravitic minefields. Systems you control are a level 5 hazard to hostile ships. Again, that's really interesting. Again, that's thematic as well from Deep Space Nine. So they take and they hold. When invading a planet, you may exhaust this card. So these are metagenic weapons. You may exhaust this card instead of rolling to hit. All your dice this combat round are automatically hit and destroy a node. Good lord, there's a lot of war crimes going on here. Infiltration protocols. When you launch new projects, you may draw 1 card from a rival's advancement deck instead of 2 from your own. If you discard the rival's card, it goes to the bottom of their deck. So that is brilliant as well. So you could look out and take a really useful faction advancement card from another player. There's some really juicy stuff in this expansion. You have labor camps. During resource generation, your culture nodes also generate 1 production if you have at least 1 ship in orbit. Again, you're high production, so you're an aggressive player and you're sending ships out there to kind of cause hassle. You have confiscation protocols. When you successfully invade a planet, take a production token for each intact node. Annexation protocols. When invading a planet, total annihilation results counts as a successful invasion. And when you successfully invade a planet, refresh 2 commands. Good lord. So you could actually really dip into another player's factions. And you have a reactive energy barriers. When invaded systems you control, ignore 2 of this attacking rival. When invaded, systems you control ignore 2 of the attacking rival's hits in the first round of combat. So yeah, the Cardies are actually a really cool little expansion. I have to say, I'm glad I picked this one up, because if you were only planning to pick up a finite amount of the expansions in this game, the Cardassians is definitely ones to consider. It's a very interesting, very aggressive faction, and a lot of nice early starts with it. So, as always, if you enjoy these videos, please like, subscribe, all that good YouTube stuff, and until next time, this is Sean from The Lucky Roll, signing off.